What's so special about my community is the resiliency and their love that they bring to the table. Is that when I see those who are helping others, they really are bringing their full selves, and they're learning their full selves. I think that there's education that is happening in the community right now, where they're trying to find ways to not only support themselves, their families, but they're really trying to find a way to create community and really find a way to love on each other. And it looks different for everybody, but I think that's what keeps drawing me back to the community that I serve.
And I totally echo on what you said about how compassionate your folks have been. I represent gender diverse trans folks, and out of the struggles that we face every day, we have people filled with compassion and love, and that's what makes them so unique, so beautiful. They're always there to volunteer to come out and serve the underserved. So, and they know what it feels like to be not served and not have opportunities. And yet, they're so much filled with compassion and love. That's beautiful.
I think what I really love about my community is the joy, despite, all of these inequities and oppressions and cultures that they're forced to survive in. That joy is always a part of everything that we do. Even during the hardest times, where we probably are looked at as people who cannot contribute, we've always contributed, and we've contributed a lot of joy to our community and to the society and to this world. We have a lot of humor in our culture, and I'm just so glad that despite years, 500 plus years of colonization and the current inequities and oppressions that exist, like, my community continues to be joyful, they continue to be humorous, and they continue to create and innovate. And it's like I tell young people in my community, like, we're brilliant people, we're geniuses, we're experts in our lived experience, and I'm just so very fortunate that I get to steward a lot of that joy publicly, and in the role that I am with the organization that I'm a part of. So I would say, that's what I love.
I would say what makes my community is the ability to create community wherever we get pushed out to, wherever we land. Our community is one of creativity, brilliance, and making a way out of no way, because that's what we've had to do since we've been here in this country, and being a part of the fabric of thriving, not just surviving. Our elders are telling the stories, and our young people are there listening, and we're there listening, because it's important to remember, who we are, where we come from, so that we know where we're going. Because community is every man, woman, and child that live in that space, regardless of where they come from, what their gender, religion, nationality. Those things are important, but as we have to live in space together and support one another and do whatever's necessary to keep our community upright, everybody's charged with that. It's just about community, being in community, being able to support the community that you are a part of, and treat everyone with dignity and respect, and do your part, because we all have a role to play. So.
And stop putting Band-Aids over bullet holes, and let us suture it up. We just continually have to have people tell us their stories over and over again. I don't think people realize the impact it has for the person who's receiving that story. When we're asking people to tell us their most traumatic self, the most traumatic stories, we're asking the person also to hear these stories and secondary trauma. And then we're experiencing our own thing. And that creates sometimes trying to cope by substances or cope by behaviors. And we're asking and we're looking at, why are these people who are serving the community, why are they struggling? Why are they doing all of these things outside? because we have to hear everybody's trauma every day. 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I know for me, I work 7 days a week. So it's not just working with my organization. I work with other organizations. I do community work. But when you tell me your story day after day after day, and you don't expect me to have burnout, but you still want me to show up, and that's not including the things that are happening in the community with murders. That's not including you're watching inequities. That's not including working in systems, trying to get money from systems, being in systems yourself. And we don't make enough money to just, do what we need to do for ourselves, because we hear self-care as a buzzword, but yet we're still expected to show up.
I have a homegirl who said self-care is a response to state violence. Like, we shouldn't have to live in a society where we have to intentionally carve out time to take care of ourselves. We should live in a society and a culture that we're already taking care of. I just keep going back to the Adrian, like, trust the people and they'll be trustworthy. And I think that a lot of us gain trust because of how quickly we were able to mobilize, but also provide people with dignity. Like, dignified resources, dignified experiences, dignified moments. Because a lot of these things, like you said, like, what is dignified about enrolling a child into a 5-week program, getting their hopes up, getting them resources, and then cutting them off at the end of 5 weeks because we don't have anything else? Like, what is dignified about that kind of plan? Like, I think about our communities and about this like, dignity, and what does it mean to provide a service that's dignified, right? Or have an interaction that's dignified. You were saying earlier about, like, when these grants ask about, how are you doing on diversity, inclusion, and equity? And I'm like, I'm gonna one-up you, actually. I'm not working on diversity, equity, or inclusion. I'm working on healing and liberation and justice. Like, I'm not interested. I was like, my organization reflects my community. The values of our organization reflects our community. We're actually trying to transform the material conditions of our community so that they can stop trauma dumping on us, so that they can actually live a very dignified life and a life that they deserve. And I just remember, like, one time this woman came to us and she's like, hey, and it's what you said earlier, like, people are just really grateful. Like, people are just really grateful, and I try to shake people out of that. I'm just like, no, actually, you're owed. I mentioned this earlier, that, like, this is sacred work, and as you mentioned, Linsay, like, many of us are in the work that we are in because our ancestors bestowed upon us a responsibility that we choose every day, right? Like, I choose the responsibility of being a steward in my community because I could have easily been the Beyonce of Burien, but I'm not, right? Easily gonna be the performance, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not. Like, I'm in this role because my ancestors were like, girl, and I listened, right? I could have ran and been very, very unhappy at this moment. But I want to say to folks who are not in this work that I'm not asking you to be in this work, because it is not within all of us to be on the front lines in the capacities, right? Like, these are very, very cosmic things, very sacred things that we're doing. And it required a lot of our own internal healing. It requires a lot of self-awareness to be in the work at the level that we are in this work, right? And as a reminder, like, nonprofit is the tool that we use to be able to do this work under the cultural context of white supremacy, right? And so with that being said, I just ask people to do their own work, internal work, to learn how they show up in spaces. How can you show up in my community with the resources and the gifts that you have? Because we all have gifts that we're bringing to the table. And sometimes the first step is just to bear witness. Like, a lot of people are like, Roxana, tell us about this model. I'm like, I cannot tell you, I can show you. I can plop you at our distribution, and I just need you to witness what happens. And sometimes that's all it takes, is for people just to come in and to witness. And from there, they can transform the ways in which they want to participate and want to belong in a community. But that's my ask of people who are not in this work day to day, is to bear witness and to really cultivate that self-awareness that is needed, so that when you do enter communities, you're doing it in a way that is authentic and that aligns with the energy that people are trying to bring to this work.
Let's talk about the energy of South King County, though. The energy of South King County keeps me coming back. And it keeps this is where my grandparents migrated from the South to come here, and they didn't leave. And so I keep thinking about the energy, the kids, the youth, the families, the elders, and there's something, the energy here that keeps people coming back.
And I can tell you what it is. I have learned it as well. Actually, I can resonate with what you're saying. It is, I think, from my experience, it is the Black indigenous people of color vibe that's so diverse here in South King County. Listening to all of us here, I think there is still a lot of work that needs to be done in South King County. There's still a lot of work that is pending that will be done. However, I feel what makes South King County so beautiful and unique is that an opportunity like this for us to congregate or to meet and to have a conversation and dialogue like this. And also, I think the resilience of the people, and also because we are learning now that we are going to be changing the systems that were placed, the systems of barriers, the systems of oppression, and we are changing it with systems of care. That is for me the true understanding or true meaning of dignity. I think that's where we connect, and that's where we see eye to eye with each other.
One thing that I absolutely love about South King County is that hood scholarship and lived experience is what reigns supreme in South King County. And I think that's so beautiful because when you go into the urban core, you're like surrounded by academic institutions and people who have degrees and PhDs and all this fancy stuff. But then you're in South King County and you're dealing with people who are literally working in these places because they lived it, So I just really wanted to answer that question because I have so much love for South King County, and I totally agree with you that there is so much work to be done. But I also see that work as a huge opportunity for us to create the type of worlds we want to see in this region. Like, we're primed to be able to really transform because of the cultural, racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity that exists here. I see South King County as a huge place of opportunity to really steward what the future is going to look like, not just for this region, but for this country. Just because of our relationships, the rawness, the creativity, the resources that we have the ability to tap into.
I love South King County because that's where my people are. And that means everybody. You know what I'm saying? Not just this group or that group, but that's where we are. We go wherever we have to go and make community in those spaces, and that's what we do. I have some wonderful partners and some beloved community members in South King County doing some amazing work with little to no resources, but they serve, with the open heart, and they do that every day. So South King County is lit. It definitely is for many reasons. One of the things that we got to realize that we've done in all of this is we have taken all the barriers and challenges away that folks normally experience going to food banks and going to get food from all these other places. Normally, you got to show them a bill from where you live to make sure you're in the area to even come to the food bank, right? Or you got to have ID and the like, right? That was gone during pandemic. You don't got to show me nothing. But the whole point is just reducing all the barriers that have normally existed in the food game. We changed the game, y'all know that, right? Because you didn't do that. You just get the food. You come get the food, right? You don't got to fill out no paperwork. You ain't got to say who you are.
When we started our food distribution, Auntie Celie Savusa, for those of you who know, I've known her since I was in high school. And I remember talking to her about our distribution and being like, Auntie, people just keep trauma dumping. They keep just they're trying to justify why they need this box. And I just remember I would just put my hand up and be like, you don't need to tell me. You do not need to explain yourself why you are here. And she said something that has stuck with me. She's like, Roxana, nonprofits have done a really good job of making our people pathetic, of opening up their wounds, of trauma dumping, of doing there's no need. Nonprofits have created communities and people that like lie and that like exaggerate and that, you know, are sharing for the sake of like justifying their humanity. Like, why do you have to justify your humanity to me? Like, food is a basic need. It is a basic thing that you need to survive in this world.
And that's the point, though. You just said it. You deserve. Not like, can I, maybe, you think that. No, we deserve. That scarcity model and that, you know, being silenced and shamed, you know, there's a lot of shame associated to it as well. It's like people don't think they deserve more because they haven't been shown that, right? The world that they live in and the society that we live in says something very different. Says something very different. Like even we talking about basic needs, because this is basic needs: food, water, shelter, and a job. Those are basic needs. We should be able to attain those, and it shouldn't be, you know, like complicated, right? So it's just like there's so many different levels of being in this world that are stigmatized, not just by community, but by government and systems, right? And as a way to control people, because it works. And they're not going to fix what's not broken. They're going to continue doing the same thing. It's not going to stop. But it's like we have to intervene. We have to speak truth to power. And we have to constantly do that. And it's a constant job. It's not just like, one-off. It's constant.
When I'm like listening to everybody talk, I keep thinking that our communities are not outcomes. Because we base so much off of grants and money as outcomes, right? You know, you have these youth programs, but you have to have so many youth of color. You have to have so many, like we're basing everything off of outcomes. But one thing I feel like has come together, especially during the pandemic and after watching some of these murders, I think now is a time where we can actually say what we need as a community and we're being listened to. But also being reminded that those who are trying to listen to us, that our communities still are not outcomes. At some point, you have to say, it's enough. We're going to support these nonprofits, these community members, and we're going to do it without anything attached to it. It has to happen because we can't keep expecting our communities to thrive and get out of these systems without that.
I think you said something that reminds me of what Adrienne Marie Brown says in Emergent Strategy, that like trust the people and the people become trustworthy, and how a lot of funders and people with resource do not trust community. But what is fascinating about this pandemic is the most trustworthy people are the community members. Because I think about, like you said, like there's this shift that's occurring, that people in South King County are no longer in a place to compete with each other, but we're actually in active partnership with one another. And I think that that's what's really beautiful about organizations and communities in South King County, is that one, we're already operating within a context of like historical disenfranchisement, right? And then we're operating within a region where we are the suburbs or the cities in a county with the largest urban core. So we're constantly competing against Seattle for resources, right? And so I think that this legacy of historical disenfranchisement, and then you layer this regional dynamic on top of it, a lot of us are realizing that we cannot be in competition with one another, you know, and how can we make sure that you all are successful and we're successful in the things that we're doing. Usually people think of community, think about community people who look like you, right? But it's like, I love South King County because I get to work people who don't look like me, you know?
Oh, I love that. And that's so real, right? Because we have been forced into this mindset of scarcity for such a long time. And it's like we always used to say back in the day, a lot of the old heads would say, oh, they're just throwing crumbs from the table. They want you to come sit at the table and share all your ideas and have focus groups, and they give you some pizza or a little gift card, and then they take your ideas and they create a program, and then they put Becky on the front line to work the program in your community. And so we saw that happen for years. That's not like a new thing, right? Of gathering community, getting the information from the community and taking it and using it how they want to use it, which is so unfortunate. But it just creates a part of that piece to me is a systemic oppression, right? But the other piece is not giving any of that power or control to the community itself. The community itself can do its own work, right? We have everything we need everything. And I mean everything from mental health, substance, life skill coaches, to safety, to you name it. Everything that we need for our communities to thrive exists already in our communities. And it looks like everyone we're talking about and everyone that's sitting around this table, right?
In 2020, when deep in the pandemic, when folks in South King County needed to be served, gender diverse folks, trans and Fafafinis, Mahus, Wakasalewalewos, they congregated here in Kent, and they showed up. They showed up every Monday, while dealing with harm themselves, while navigating a pandemic that they were already living of harm and neglect. They showed up to serve folks from all walks of life, to distribute food every Monday in Kent, distributing 600 to 800 boxes of food. That is such a beautiful picture to reflect back and to see, because these people have suffered a lifelong series of harm, neglect, and lack of dignity. But here, when it's a will call, when there's time for them to for folks to show up to help, they come in numbers. In deep in the pandemic, when people didn't want to come out and do anything because they were scared, we didn't know much about the virus at that time. So people were fearing to congregate. Here there were folks volunteering, and that is the power of people who are resilient. I think they have that power. They show up, and that's magical.
I think for those of us who are on the front lines, like boots to the ground, doing work, like I follow all of your work, so I know the type of work that we're doing. And as Pastor Lena, who's at the church that we're housed at, says, like, this is sacred work. The work that we are doing outside, like, it's contained within this nonprofit label, right? Because we're forced to operate within that to get the money that we need to serve our communities. But the essence and the spirit of our work is sacred, right? And so I'm like, and I think a lot of us are shifting the ways that we do work because we're seeing the need to heal. Like, I think, for centuries we've known that we've had to heal, but this pandemic has really pushed that to the forefront of just like, we are incredibly traumatized people that are interacting with other traumatized people, as Resma Menachem says, And I'm thinking about, like, we're transforming at a pace that these philanthropists are not catching on to because they are not a part of that sacred work. And I'm just like, I need you to get in touch with your humanity so you can see the humanity that's actually really actively living in a lot of these communities that we're trying to transform. And I'm just like, so I just want to be like, this is an invitation for people with resources and money to start to align with the people who are doing this work so that we can restore the humanity that has been forever robbed of so many of us, right? So that people do feel like they deserve basic things like food, shelter, water, and jobs. And I would even add joy into that. Like, how many people are robbed of their joy and their creativity and their imagination? And I'm just like, we have cultivated spaces in our community where our communities can dream. People never thought that they would be able to receive, like, we have a Mexican food box and a Central American food box. And I remember, like, people were like, I never thought that I would receive something like this. And I was like, that is so sad. Like, that just made me so angry because I'm like, this is the food you eat, And so even just that, the ability for our communities to dream in that way. And I'm like, that is the dignity that I'm talking about, right? About, like, let's restore, like, let's heal, let's transform. But I also want the people in my community to be able to dream. Because as Trisha Hersey says, like, our future lives in our imagination and our creativity and in our ability to dream a new world. And I'm like, I need to feed my people. I need to give them living wages so that they can rest and be able to dream with me. Like, can we just all be dreaming?
I totally emphatically agree. It just reminds me of what one of the young people said. They were interviewing and they were asking the young people, well, how do you feel about, working in the community, doing outreach and engagement and distributing food? And the young people were like, I feel like a superhero.
I think that the work that is being done is heart work. It's spiritual work. It is our ancestral work, and it is sacred ground. And what I would tell bigger nonprofits and to those who are in the community, that the work that is being done by those who are actively trying to work in the community is just give us money and let us do the work, and stop asking for outcomes, stop asking for things that make people share their trauma, stop having us put Band-Aids over bullet holes, and let us just do the work, and let us take care of ourselves while we're doing the work, while we take care of the community. Because the work that we do is all of the things I said in the beginning, and the people who are doing the work, we're not doing it because we're looking for accolades. We're not doing it because we are trying to just get paid, because we don't get paid well. We are doing this because we have chosen to do the work, and we have chosen to walk this path, and we have chosen to support our community. And so in those spaces, we're asking for just the basic things. Give us money so we can do the work and support our community, so we can start healing as a community. So that way the fractures that are within some of our communities can start being mended, not putting Band-Aids over. Because when we start really mending them, we can start talking about healthier communities, healthier people, healthier families, and healthier kids.